Hi, so earlier this week I got three new things out for Age of Sigmar. There was the Skaven Battletome, which I'm going to review in this video. There's also the Flesh Eater Courts Battletome, and then there was the Carrion Empire thing. And so it's about time I did the reviews on them, get them out quickly. So, Skaven Battletome. Skaven are my favourite army going back, character-wise, and you know, I've even taken them to tournaments now and then, tended to move away from them for various reasons. But I do love them. And so when I've come back to Age of Sigmar, because I didn't play it when it first came out. I'd taken a break from Warhammer for about 10 years and then came back. So all this stuff about the old world having gone and we've now got this Age of Sigmar was a bit new to me. And as Battletomes have come out and things have come out, I've been reading up on it. And so now it's time for me to try and really get up to speed with Skaven. And I was delighted to see that lore-wise, the Skaven in here, the Skaven in Age of Sigmar, are exactly the same as the Skaven from Old Fantasy Battle. You know, the character is exactly the same. The organisation of the society is essentially the same. So I'm sort of quite delighted about that. You even have, instead of Skaven Blight, we have Blight City. But it's, you know, it's the same sort of thing there, really. The other thing, when I was reading through the lore aspects of the game that I was very pleased with, was because I'd got some models already ahead of it, you know, to get my Skaven army going. And I was constructing some Storm Fiends, which, you know, weren't about the last time I was playing Skaven. And they have these weird fetus things on the back of them. What the hell is that? And what grotesque experiment is this? So now I know. So I've read this, and, you know, it's apparently they're brain bots. You know, they're grafted onto them to be, because rat ogres aren't clever enough, apparently. So, you know, it was very interesting to read about all that as well. So as enjoyable as the lore was, however, obviously the content that I am most interested in is the gameplay. Now, I've already done one video with a particularly potent criticism I have of it, but there are good things and bad things in there. So in terms of the overall review. So first of all, command traits and relics are plenty. They've got themes along the clan line. So you've got the major clans covered in there. Master clan, first of all, is sort of your Grey Seers, essentially. Clan Verminus, your warrior clan. I miss Clan Morse, but never mind. Clan Eshin, Clan Scryer, Clan Pestilence, of course, in there as well. And depending on which character, if you have one of those characters, your general, it's not a named character, then, you know, you can choose a command trait. But there are different command trait lists for the different clans. Some of them are uncommon across them, which is absolutely great. And the same with relics. You've got, you know, relics for each clan as well. And some of them are really good. I've actually just had a game, a 1500 point game with the Skaven tonight. And unfortunately, it didn't go according to plan at all. I lost my general immediately. But what I like about it is they haven't lost, and I don't suppose there was any serious risk of them of doing this. They haven't lost some of their self-destructive nature. In particular, Clan Scryer, of course. You know, but the most spectacular loss I had was with the Grey Seer. So they have, as has always existed in some form or other, the ability to munch on Warpstone before they cast a spell. In this particular case, you know, you can only do it once per hero phase. They can cast 2 spells, so you can choose 1 spell. Munch on some Warpstone. Roll 3d6. The idea being that you'd remove the lowest roll. So it improves your chances of being able to get it. Which is just as well, because some of these spells that they've got are like cast on a 7 or cast on an 8. So a little bit of a boost is useful for things like that. But if you roll a 13 on those 3 dice, then it's going to be cast. It's like cast with what in old days would have been called unstoppable power. But then your Grey Seer is slain. So the first time I did this, I thought, I really want to get this spell off, because I was already losing quite badly at this point. I really want to get this spell off. Desperate time to call for desperate measures. Rolled the 3 dice, and I looked and I was about to take the lowest one away. And I thought, that adds up to 13. I got a 6 and a 5 and a 2. I thought, oh, Well, you can't unbind that spell. That's the good news. The bad news is that Grey Seer is now dead. Absolutely love that. But yeah, you've got this ability now. That's to help them with their spell casting. There's 3 types of Warlock Engineers now for Clan Scryer, and the other thing is each of your heroes from different clans get an ability as well according to their clan. So Grey Seers, for example, in Master Clan, unfortunately this is not all that ideal, but I didn't make it the general basically, but if I had, because if they use a command trait, I don't mean a command trait, I mean a command ability, sorry, you can roll a d6. If you get a 5+, you get a command point back. So it's like it hasn't cost you anything. But a Grey Seer doesn't get a command point ability of its own. In fact, it's only none of the actual Skaven-y characters, actual Skaven heroes, do get any command abilities. You know, they get other things. As I say, you've got a good range of traits and relics. I'm sort of okay with that. A little bit, you know, it'd be sort of nice if major heroes, at least a smattering of heroes got them. But the Vermin Lords do get command abilities, and Thankwall, the named, you know, Grey Seer, of course, also gets a command ability. So there are command abilities there, but just not if you're using the actual normal Skaven heroes. But you've got your 3 standard command abilities, of course, there. You know, but all the different clans have a different, like, ability thing. So, for example, if you have any Clan Scryer heroes, then you roll d3, add 3 to it, and that's how many, like, these Warpstone Spark things you get. And you can consume these at various points. Like, for example, you can consume it in your hero phase, and it allows you, or it could be your hero's phase or your opponent's hero phase, and it allows you to re-roll casting rolls for spells, or could be unbinding rolls in your opponent's hero phase. You know, there's 3 uses for them. That's one use. Another use is you can pick some Clan Scryer missile-based units and increase the damage characteristic of their missile weapons by 1. So Giselles that are doing extra point of damage, things like that. If you're taking those. And the other one is in combat, so improves its chance to hit, things like that. Rerolls hits, I think it is. But after, you know, if you do use a spark and you've only got so many to last you the battle, then at the end of that phase you have to roll a d6. If you get a 1, you take d3 mortal wounds. So you've got that as well. But it's not, you know, it's not hugely risky, so it's certainly worth using those sparks for the key phases. And I mostly focused it on for the spell phases. You know, so that's, you know, that's really nice. It's got quite a few abilities. It's got like overcharge abilities. So for example, with the Warp Lightning Cannon, I took a Warp Lightning Cannon. If you keep a Warlock Engineer near it, and I took an Arch Warlock, then you can overcharge it, which means that instead of rolling 6 dice to see how many mortal wounds you score, you can roll 12. But if any of them come up as a 1, it takes d3 mortal wounds. But you know, again, it's one of those things where, in a desperate situation, you know, where it's worth risking you damaging the Warp Lightning Cannon. Yeah, it's a great thing to be able to do. It does mean you need to keep a Clan Scryer hero, or a Warlock Engineer specifically, close to it. Now, where I do have a little bit of criticism is, apart from what I already talked about in the other video, which I'll talk about here as well, is actually in the spells. So you've got 3 types of caster in a Skaventide army. You've got Grey Seers, of course. You've got Warlock Engineers. And there's 3 types of Warlock Engineers, as I say. You've got your Arch Warlock, which can cast 2 spells. You've got your normal Warlock Engineer, which can cast 1 spell. And you've got your Warlock Bombardier, which also casts 1 spell. It gets like a rocket launcher thing, which is not that brilliant, actually. I haven't taken one yet. It's a bit it's very hit and miss. You get 1 attack with it. But, you know, maybe it would be fun to take at some point in the future. But anyway, so that's your choice there. Now, and then you've got Vermin Lords, of course, and they're all double wizards as well, like Grey Seers. They can cast 2 spells. So Grey Seers, there's a spell law for Grey Seers, as you'd expect. So the Grey Seer can choose from one of these 6 spells, which is great. And it's a nice selection as well, some decent spells in there. It gives you a good range of things to choose from. Warlock Engineers can also choose spell. There's a Warlock Engineer law. Unfortunately, there's only 3 spells in there, but one of them, more, warp power, is really amazing. What you can do with that is you place it on a friendly unit. It's got to be relatively close by, quite 12 inches. Usually it'd be like 13 inches for these sort of things, but this from someone else, 12. I think someone forgot. They didn't read the memo that says, by the way, make all these distances a multiple of 13. But anyway, and what it does is it allows you on that friendly Skaventide unit to have them re-roll all failed hits and wounds. And this is not just in combat, this is for shooting as well. So, you know, one turn, for example, I'll put it on my Stormfiends with a rattling gun, which is bloody useful. And but what happens then, and it lasts until your next hero phase, at which point that unit will take D3 wounds. So, you know, that's a reasonable trade-off, because it might be, you know, a little while before it's your next hero phase. If you're the first one going first in a particular phase, and then, you know, your opponent then goes next, and then maybe you don't get the first turn in the next one, you might be a few rounds of combat where you can get some use out of this. And if it's a big old unit like Plague Monks or Clan Rats or Storm Vermin, something like that, D3 mortal wounds, you'll take that for being able to re-roll hits and wounds, of course you will. So that's a really nice spell. It's a very nice spell. But there are only 3. And if someone wants to take I was talking to a couple at the gaming club tonight, so they're both fans of Skaven as well. They're not really playing them at the moment, but they had in Fantasy Battle Days, and they've both got sizable Skaven armies still. I got rid of mine years ago. And one of them saying there's various clans to like multiple Warlock Engineers is what they like to take, things like that. And so, yeah, I mean, the good thing about it, if you do want to take multiple Warlock Engineers, is the Warp Lightning spell that they get as standard. You can cast that as much as you like. So it's not one of those worrying things where you would say, oh, that Warlock Engineer is going to cast Warp Lightning, and this one will have to cast the other spell that they've chosen, and things like that. And there's only 3 spells to choose from altogether. Bit limited. They can just fall back and cast the Warp Lightning spell. So it's all right from that point of view. So that's not what I'm complaining about with the spells. It's just disappointing, that's all. You know, the 3 spells that they do have a choice of covers, again, still a nice range. And the more warp powers are amazing. Take that always. It's, you know, it's just, surely they could have thought of a few more. But where I have a real criticism is with the Vermin Lords. So, the Vermin Lords, of course, like wizards, most wizards, not all, but the vast majority of wizards, they get their own spell. This is their spell, so they can use that. They can be quite situational. Some of them are actually really good, but you're not always going to get use out of them. It's not always going to be usefully something to do. But they can cast 2 spells. So, okay, that's, you know, you go for one from the lore. But the problem is that there isn't one for them. They can't actually select another spell, which just seems a bit mad to me. And again, I was talking to the people at the gaming club tonight, and they were similarly unimpressed with this. You know, you've got something. It's bad enough in my books if you're going to use a wizard. And this is like the second thing I'm going to criticise, which to my mind is unique for Skaven. And this is like the newest of the new books. Well, it came out exactly the same time as Flesh Eater, of course, but still, you know, you have a situation, if you're going to bring a wizard in as an ally, then of course you don't get to choose from that spell line. And sometimes you get the odd little aberration. For example, we're just discussing this tonight as well, Legions of Nagash. When Nighthaunt came out, they decided to add in, because Legions of Nagash Battletome already has some Nighthaunt in it, they allowed you to take some of the other Nighthaunts, the newer Nighthaunt, and that's fine in Legion of Nagash as well. There's like an errata document on the Warhammer website. And one of them is the Guardian of Souls, which Nighthaunt wizard. But if you use it in Legion of Nagash, it's not an ally. You can use it. It's just part of the normal list. But it doesn't get to choose from one of those spell laws. Now, I'm okay with that, because although you sort of can bring it in, it is technically from a different battle tome. I'm okay with that. But the Vermin Lords are for this battle tome, and this battle tome only. And it creates a bit of a difficulty, because, you know, you're talking about, okay, you get to cast 2 spells. So you cast your own spell, which may or may not be useful to cast, but okay, it's what it is. But then you're limited to your Arcane Bolt or your Mystic Shield. Now, you could always argue our Mystic Shield is going to be you know, that's always useful. You can at least usefully cast that on something. But what if the unit you'd most usefully like to cast it on is not in range of it, but it's in range of another wizard? You want to cast it on another wizard. You're just really stuck with Arcane Bolt. And what if, I mean, in the grand scheme of things, what if you end up firing your Arcane Bolt at a big old block of 60 zombies or something? Wow, I've killed one. Wow. So that's disappointing. And again, I cannot think of a modern Battletome, any Battletome in fact, that has spell laws in it, which includes some of the older ones, where there is any wizard in that Battletome, not just allowed in that list, but actually specifically in that Battletome, that is not allowed to select from one of those laws. I can't think of an example. So that's a unique thing. And then, you know, in terms of like getting onto the actual unit choice, now of course it's a vast selection of units. Skaven have all sorts of cunning little toys for the various clans, because there's, you know, the number of units available to each individual clan is not necessarily huge. For Scryer it is, but then, you know, they're not exactly what you'd call troops, little toys. But across the whole Skaven type thing, there's a lot there. But what was disappointing to me, this is what I talked about in the other video, I'll just go through very, very quickly here, is you've got what your battle line is in all of the battle tomes, the modern ones. You have your core battle line, which is like, this is just battle line. And then you have some units where it's like, these can be battle line if you take this as your general. And I compared it to the previous Battletome Gloomspite Gits, which is exactly like Skaven. You've got different types of Gloomspite Gits, because it's really a collection together, because you've got night goblins in what we used to call night grots, moonclan grots, whatever you want to call them now. Used to be night goblins, spider goblins, spider grots, I guess, and trolls, troggoths, whatever, and all these sort of things, and squigs, and all these sort of things. And it's like, well, you can take these as battle line if you've got this as your boss, as your general. And you would expect the same thing of the Skaven. You know, for example, if you take a Plague Priest as your general, then you can have Plague Monks. I'm not suggesting Plague Monks and Plague Censer Bearers or anything like that, but Plague Monks, say, and you know, and so on. But no, you can't do that. So you're basically taking Clan Rats, and something I did neglect to say in the last video as well, forgot, which is Storm Vermin. So those are your battle line, Clan Rats and Storm Vermin. Storm Vermin are fairly expensive. I'm not saying they're not worth it, but they're not worth it unless you take a lot of them. And a full-size unit of Storm Vermin is 500 points. And, right, they're not bad, but 500 points on a big block of just Skaven. I'd rather take 2 big blocks of Plague Monks, quite frankly, for the damage it would effectively do. Because that's another thing. Now, in terms of the Allegiance abilities, all very Skaven, all very good. For example, one thing that is what I was waiting for this Battletome to come out for, is the fact that you get a very Skaven-y type ability in terms of your bravery. So in Age of Sigmar, when you've got at least 10 models in the unit, you get +1 bravery for every 10 models in the unit. Very essential for Skaven, except for Skaven it's 2 + 2 bravery. So when you start off the game and you've got your big block of 40 Clan Rats, for example, what have they got actually? They start off on bravery 4, don't they? So you've got bravery 12. That's not bad. That'll do you. The thing is, though, and what I discovered tonight, and I should have really thought about this before anyway, because you sort of know this is going to happen, is you think to yourself, oh yeah, so obviously if you take a battle shot test, they will have lost at least 1 model, so it'll not actually be 12, it'll be down to 10, but even 10 you won't care about. It's like, oh yeah, if I lose like 5 models, you know, I'm bravery 10. I mean, you know, I'm not likely to have much run away. I might have 1 run away if I'm really unlucky. So you're thinking about it. But then, actually, when it comes down to it, with the Clan Rats, is the realistic situation is you're going to lose so many models in a turn if someone, like, just charges into them with something decent, as happened to me, or shoots at them, or both. You can actually lose, quite quickly, 15 models. And yeah, you've still got a lot left, but your bravery's gone right down and you are struggling, so you have to use a command point then. So they're still weedy, and the Storm Vermin, although they're better in combat, are not actually anything different to that. You're still going to lose a lot of them. That's why you can have a unit of 40 of them. But that's it. You know, that's your battle line. Like, take it or leave it. But if you want, let's say, Plague Monks as battle line, that's fine, no problem. But you have to take nothing but Clan Pestilence units. Just that. You're allowed one Master Clan General, only if they're the General. So you could take as Grey Seer, or Screaming Bell, let's say, or just Grey Seer, whatever, and have it as your General. But everything else then has to be Clan Pestilence. So, right, okay. And the point I was making is, even in the lore, in this book, it was always the case that Skaven armies were actually multiple clans. Not that they work together. One clan has the army, but they purchase things from the other clans. It says that in here as well. This is what I mean about in the lore. It reflects exactly the way it was. And what's it supposed to be called now? The Age of Myth? Is that what we call Fantasy Battle now? I think that's what it's called. So those are my disappointments, really. So the spells with the Vermin Lord, and, you know, the way you can structure your army. So I'm now compelled to take Clan Rats, where, you know, I'd have taken a unit of Clan Rats, but I didn't want to take 2 or 3 in 2,000 points. I suppose for 2,000 points, you might go for Storm Vermin, but I'm still undecided as to how many is worth it. Because on the one hand, I look at it and I think, like, I took a 1,500 point army today. Would I be happy taking that same army with just 40 Storm Vermin? Because that would make it up to 2,000 points. I'm looking at it, I think, no. I'd certainly have to go back to the drawing board and build it back up from the ground up. Would I be happy spending a quarter of my points on one unit of Storm Vermin? And I think, I'm not sure I would. At the same time, I'm certainly not going to go for just, you know, people have said, oh, just throw it away, just do 3 minimum size units of Clan Rats. Even that's 360 points. 20 Clan Rats isn't very useful at all. It doesn't stand up to anything. Nothing at all. The benefit of it, another really good allegiance ability, is for your mass ranked. If you've got at least 20 models, they get +1 to wound. If you've got at least 30, it's +1 to hit as well. So when you've got your unit of 40, until you've lost at least 11 of them, you are +1 to hit and wound. And that's what makes them useful. And that's why I say with Storm Vermin even, if you have a lot of them, they are technically worth the points. But are you going to usefully use that many points in just one unit that isn't going to be able to take much of a smack in the mouth back? And that's the difficulty to go with there. So, you know, but in terms of the army, I mean, when I was playing the game tonight, I was disappointed with myself. I was too eager and went for firewood and got smashed. I was very disappointed my Plague Furnace died straight away, even though it's tougher than the Plague Furnace that was in the original Clan Pestilence Battletome, because it gets like a disgustingly resilient ability. Same with the Screaming Bell, actually. You've got so you've got your armor save, your 4+ save, but then if the wound is still applied, or if you suffer a mortal wound, you get a 5 up to negate it. So, you know, that's nice. It is quite nice. But the point is that it was disappointing. Everything, you know, I was hoping my Plague Furnace and the Plague Monks would just get in there and get stuck in with their ridiculous, you know, take Plague Monks, oh, absolutely, with Wibble Sticks, which is actually what I call woe staves. Don't ask why. Wibble Sticks. Brilliant. Loads of attacks. And if they get a charge in, which mine unfortunately didn't, that's even more attacks. And you've got your prayers and everything. It's absolutely brilliant. And what I took with the Plague Priest on the Plague Furnace was, for Relic and Trait can re-roll the prayer rolls. So, you know, you've got a much better chance of definitely being able to get them to pass. And then the Relic I took, which unfortunately couldn't come to fruition because it just died straight away, which is unfortunate, was one where I can also select a prayer from the normal Plague Priest War Scroll. So he's basically getting to cast 2 prayers a turn and re-rolling the failed ones. All very nice. In terms of synergy between different units, there isn't really a lot of that. There's the Warlock Engineer, as I say, with something like a Warp Lightning cannon. You know, there's various overcharge things, and they could be useful for that. And obviously some of their spells are buffs, but that's not really what I'd call synergy. Synergy is where certain units work well when they're together. Now, the closest thing there is to real synergy, and as I say, the Warlock Engineer being able to overcharge the Warp Lightning Cannon is not bad. That's certainly not bad. Is the Plague Furnace and the Screaming Bell, if there's a unit of Skaventide entirely within 13 inches of it, doesn't have to take a battle shock test. So you don't even have to worry about the bravery factor. Unless, of course, someone destroys your Plague Furnace straight away in turn 1. Then that's different. But that's quite good as well. Except, I sort of thought, at first when I read that, I thought, oh, that's, that's nice. And then I thought to myself, is it really Skaven-y, though? You like the idea that they're braver in mass ranks, but the idea that they wouldn't have to take a battle shock test at all under this particular condition, because that's pretty unusual, if not actually unique in itself. I'm not really sure. So it's like, on the one hand, there's something I'm not happy about in terms of the way the battle line is treated, because usually, as I say, you have general dependent battle line as opposed to, yeah, you can have these as battle line, but you're not allowed to take anything from, there's no, anything else from the rest of the battle tome. So it's like you either take all the clan rats or you're not allowed clan rats at all, which is just very weird. And that's one where I'm disappointed, not only just because I don't want to take loads of clan rats, I want to take some, but I also want to take, plague monks essentially. But anyway, never mind that. But the main thing is I'm sort of saying it's not fitting the law. And then here, there's a nice ability. But again, it doesn't fit the law. So should they really do that? I don't know. But it's done. It's what it is. It's in there. I'm not going to complain. It just means you just stick your plague monks right next to it and hope no one beats up the Plague Furnace immediately with their ridiculously overpowered Samgor Enlightened in their Disciples of Siege list, I think is what you learn from that. So yeah, by and large, there are those couple of disappointments, but in other regards, at least I'm very pleased the fact that I can at least now make a proper Skaven army with the allegiance abilities, not having to use the Chaos Allegiance, even though that's not helping me out on battle line issues. It is at least helping me out because I've now got access to, for some characters, decent spell lore. It's like, really annoying though. If I want to bring a Vermin Lord, because they do have some nice command abilities, but then they're going to be poor wizards, even though you're paying the points for them being a double wizard. So that's a little disappointing, I suppose. But at the same time, the Skaven list in general, I can bring a proper Skaven list. It just means more clan rats than I would like. The characters, there's a nice selection of characters in there. And as I say, they've been treated properly to some themed relics and traits. And when we come to it, War Scroll battalions. And then the final little point I'll just leave you with. Unfortunately, I didn't get to try it out, but the endless spells. Now, ever since I've come back into this game about a year ago, whenever they brought out a new thing, I've got the endless spells for it. But I haven't actually included any in lists yet. And yet tonight, I did actually include one of them. In fact, for both the Flesh Eater Courts, but I'll come to that in the next review, and the Skaven one, there is one in particular that's really nice. Out of the 3 endless spells for Skaven, you've got the Bell, which just seems weird to me. I don't really see the point much in that. You need to be lucky as I read it. Then you've got an expensive one that's really good, but it is expensive, so maybe not. But then there's Vermintide. And this is a 40-point endless spell. It's also a predatory spell. Now, I have been suspicious of predatory spells because the problem is they can bite you on the arse. You can cast it and do some damage with it. And then on the next turn, if it's the only endless spell there and your opponent... Hang on. Well, if you end up going first, that's right. Then your opponent gets to move it. And they can move it back onto you. And maybe they'll do more harm to you than you ever did to them. So it's like, hang on a minute, I'm paying the points for this. I've had to cast it. And yet actually, potentially, if I don't use it correctly, if I'm unlucky, you're going to be getting more use out of it than I am, or even as much use out of it as I am. But the Vermintide is brilliant because it's a predatory endless spell. Does no harm to Skaventide units. And in fact, can't even exist as a barrier to Skaventide units because Skaventide units can go over it, pass over it, as if they could fly over it. Obviously, you can't land on top of it, but you can go, if you can clear it, you can go right over it. It doesn't even impede you from that point of view. Absolutely marvellous. Unfortunately, I didn't get to cast it. I attempted to, failed, and then Gracie disappeared up in a puff of green smoke, and I had more important things to cast in my Warlock Engineer. But that is one I'd be happy to take. And then I suppose the actual final thing I should talk about, I haven't talked about, can't believe it, is the scenery, which again, unfortunately, I didn't get to use. So what I did with the scenery is you've got these gnaw holes. Now, first of all, if you're getting these, you're going to assemble them. I'm going to be honest, I'm not putting the scaffolding on it. I saw someone at the weekend actually saying they're not gluing their scaffolding to it for transport issues, because it makes it more difficult to transport, because it gives it more bulk, which it does. But I has actually said after it, sort of only half jokingly, because I'm serious about this, I'm not putting mine on it. I'm just going to keep it as the actual holes. But I joked about it. The purpose of scaffolding, isn't really needed, is it? Because I don't think Skaven are really into health and safety. But the way that works is you plonk 3 of them. Now, you have got to put them basically on table edges. It says they have to be deployed wholly within 8 inches of table edges. But given that they're about 6 inches across, that's pretty much up to a couple inches, Grace. So what I did is I plonked 1 in my deployment zone and then 2 in my opponent's deployment zone, with the intention of having the storm vermin pop out behind them and surprise them. Unfortunately, my opponent was wise to that, and they deployed such that I actually couldn't, unfortunately, because when you pop out, there are restrictions on it. It's not as simple as just jumping in and back out again. You've got the unit that wants to do its teleport. You can only do with 1 unit, by the way, a turn, a hero phase. No, it's a movement phase, sorry. And the unit you want to move through, the whole unit has to be within 6 inches of that gnaw hole. So, there's only so many units you can do that realistically with. You also have to have a Skaven hero within 6 inches of it. That I suppose gives them the go-ahead to use it, I guess. And then when you pop out the other end, you've still got to be wholly within 6 inches of the gnaw hole and more than 9 inches away from opponent. So in the end, I couldn't quite manage it. I could manage it with 2 of the Storm Fiends, but not the other one. So that was a shame. I didn't get to pop behind him with warp fire projectors and rattling guns, which would have been hilarious. But unfortunately, yeah, they'd covered all those bases, so that was disappointing. There was a point at the end of the battle as well, and I'd lost this battle. I'd absolutely lost it. But we're getting towards the end of it, and we were level pegging on victory points. If I was lucky, I'd have been able to match him on victory points by the end of the battle, but he would have won on points worth destroyed, so a minor victory. And then I had my clan rats around it, and I looked at the other side, and he just had 5 Chaos Warriors on his objective. It was the Gift from the Heavens one, so we each had a meteor in our own zones, and he was mostly in my territory. He just had these 5 Chaos Warriors, and I looked and I thought, I had a unit of 20 clan rats here, and I didn't need all those clan rats to capture my objective. I thought I could teleport these behind, and I would outnumber it and I would capture his objective. And although the Chaos Warriors would eventually beat them down, not quickly enough, I'd win the game. This was like proper victory from the jaws of defeat. Unfortunately, both my heroes, in fact, all 3 of my heroes were dead. And that's the thing, you need a hero as well near it, and they were all dead by then. So I thought, curses, I thought I had a cunning plan there. But it does give you that, doesn't it? It gives you that potential. It's like, if you have one of those things where you've got an objective in your own deployment zone, and they've got to have someone hang back. But every time you have to have something hang back, then that means that's a unit that's not taking part in the fight, and that's always disappointing. And if you stick, these gnaw holes somewhere in their deployment zone, preferably not too close to each other, just in a useful place, so it gives you options, then that means for them to stop you using it subsequently in the game, they've got to leave more back. Well, then that's taking more out of the fight. So there's huge tactical you know, potential for these gnaw holes really are. I need to be a bit smarter about using them in the future, because yeah, they're really, really useful. And definitely, if you're one of those people who, you know, maybe gets some of your army, can't deploy your scenery because, well, that's expensive, and you're going to prioritize other models first, I would say do get the scenery as soon as possible, because some of this scenery is really useful. And the gnaw holes, the tactical benefits that can give you in quite a lot of battle plans, especially one where there is an objective in your opponent's territory. Yeah, absolutely. But anyway, that's sort of my review of the Skaven Battletome. Mostly positive and mostly excited about it. Two, I would say, serious disappointments with it, not rather than minor niggling things. I would say there are two things that I don't think are right and do impact on the list you're able to make, which is ultimately impacting on your enjoyment of the game. But, you know, there it is. Let me know what you think anyway in the comments below, particularly if you've got the Battletome and you've got your own thoughts on it. Hope you enjoyed the review. If you did, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe for further content. Until next time, I'll see you later.